All right, guys, you've spotted the house of your dreams, the house that you want. This is the one. Now, how do you go in and make really good offers in a hot market, particularly when you know that you're hitting somewhere near your peak? Most people go into a real estate transaction thinking price is the only metric. But put yourself in the shoes of the seller and you'll realise that price is not always the only metric. I mean, oftentimes these people are just like you. They're selling a house that they live in and they need to move to another property. Maybe they're moving forward with their lives and they want some kind of big picture outcome. And to do that, they need certain things to happen. For example, that sale might need to connect to another sale. The timing therefore becomes important. Or it could be quite a drastic, unfortunately negative situation. Perhaps they need to sell the house in order to fix up a financial mess that these guys have come across. Maybe it's even due to a marriage breakup. All of these things are really, really important with regards to how your offer lands in their lap. Now, you have an agent, you've got to go through an agent. The agent is working for the seller and the agent will naturally know these things. So whereas you might think agents are always driving for price, and generally they are because they get paid on commission, but in the background they are also trying to make sure that certain key requirements for the seller are being met. And that has to do with the speed and the certainty, or at least maybe perhaps the flexibility of that sale and how it carries out for them. So one of the best negotiating tactics you can go into when it comes to a property that you're looking at is to engage the agent in discussion and potentially get in, if you are able to, with direct conversation with the owner. Because that is where you can get some of the rich understanding of what matters to them and how your offer can reflect what matters to them. So, as I mentioned, price is obviously a big thing. Everyone wants the best price they can possibly get. But if you're able to offer them the certainty that your offer will actually go through and complete, that is very important. So, coming organised with a pre-approval. You don't need to tell them what your pre-approval is, you just need to tell them that you have a pre-approval. The other thing is an appraisal letter. That's not a bad thing too, because that says you've been and saw, you've been to see somebody and you've done the preparation, you've given your information over, you've had the conversations, the groundwork is done, you think that you can buy this house based on the appraisal that you've got from a broker. That's another important step. It just shows that you're serious. Next is you can talk to the agent about what you've looked at, what you've seen around the place, whether you think this represents good value. This shows the agent that you're serious because you've done your research, you've done your work. Now, beyond all of that, so you put down an offer and it addresses the seriousness. How prepared are you? There's a step that involves how fast can you move, and this depends on sellers who are actually kind of placing that in high importance. But it doesn't even matter if sellers are not necessarily needing to work quickly, because the process of going through a loan, obviously, or the process of putting an offer on property, you put your offer down, and what that does is it locks up the property exclusively to you for a period of time until either the finance period expires or some other contractual term allows you to split ways with the seller and they can remarket the property. Now, remarketing can be a pain, particularly in a downward trending market. In fact, that's actually a real problem for you because people get a bit angry about deals that fall through. In an upward selling market, well, it's simply an inconvenience. They have to do another series of home opens, they have to do another round of negotiations, but ultimately they're probably going to sell maybe even for more than what you offered several weeks later. The key is certainty, right? So speed is one thing, certainty the other, but I mentioned certainty in your preparedness and your homework. But if you can say that, look, I am so prepared that I can say we can do this approval in 14 days. We can do it in 7 days, which is very small period of time, but it means that the margin of error for these guys is narrower. So if the seller says, okay, great, I've got somebody's offer here at a slightly higher level and I've got your offer here at a slightly lower level. These guys want 30 days for finance. You want 14 days for finance. What that means is they can run the course of you, they can burn 2 weeks, and if it doesn't work out, they can very quickly pivot, potentially to buyers who are still active, have not moved on, and go with their deal. So the speed in which you can offer an outcome is an important negotiating tactic, and that comes back onto preparedness. They're kind of related, right? You know, if you go out without indicating that you have the homework done and you say, I can get finance in 14 days, an agent might call you on that bullshit. They might sort of say, I don't think you can do that. Now, the other part is like, you do need to indicate what your deposit is. That is a helpful strategy, because a loan at 60% loan to value ratio is easier to get approved than a loan at 90% loan to value ratio. A loan, and this is unfortunately for the first home buyers, a loan that needs to go through the first home buyer schemes is actually a little more arduous and time consuming than a loan that does not. So if you're able to indicate what kind of deposit you have to go into the deal, that's helpful. I wouldn't talk about specifics. I just talk about the loan to value ratio that you need to get approved. Now, if you do happen to be in one of those higher loan to value ratio categories, and I know that there is a lot of people there, just given the way house prices have risen and the way, you know, you can accumulate savings in that time, then it comes down to consulting your broker and working out what kind of things you can put forward that help your case, even though you're on a higher loan to value ratio. For example, there are lenders who will do 90%, and they don't need to go through the additional step of getting a lender's mortgage insurance approval. Lender's mortgage insurance requires 2 approvals, one from the bank, one from the insurer. So if you can say that we are already looking at a bank that doesn't need that second layer of approval, you've just satisfied one of the speed requirements. So let's put all this back together. Anything you can do to show the selling agent, or to even get through to the owner of the property directly, that you are prepared, you've done your homework, you are serious, you have a sizable deposit, or you have a strategy that allows you to move quickly, notwithstanding a smaller deposit. These are all really, really good things. And the final one, which is really hard to eke out unless you have these detailed conversations with an agent or an owner, is the flexibility, right? And this is something which is actually really, really good for first home buyers, because flexibility is about saying, look, I'm going to get finance quickly. You can be certain that our contract is unconditional, but when it comes to settlement, I can work with you. If you need extra time in order to go and sell your house, arrange bridging finance, not sell your house, you're buying it, but in order to go and buy the next house that you're moving into, then I can be flexible, right? And so this is a real stress. You wouldn't know it until you've been through it. You're selling your house and you're moving to another house, and you don't actually know either outcome yet, right? But if they can lock away one outcome knowing that it's flexible with regards to the second outcome, then it takes a lot of pressure off that seller to then, okay, let's book that in, and then we'll work out the next part of our plan. And that is a really, really important aspect. In fact, I think in many cases, if you can somehow understand whether or not that seller needs flexibility and demonstrate that you have flexibility, that will win you the deal, because that is where you fit into their agenda and you take a large amount of stress off the table. And you'd be surprised what that is worth in dollars, i.e., your offer price. So this is a positive way and an optimistic way of saying price does not always win out. Usually it does, unfortunately, but that's because people are unimaginative. Some people are serious bidders, and they go in and they say, I'll throw that money at you. It's a cash offer. We want it, right? It's very hard to compete with that. But in other cases, if you're able to get to that point where you're understanding a bit about the seller and you're having a bit of a deeper conversation with the seller or the agent, you can start to work with what matters for them and craft your offer to put yourself ahead, notwithstanding what you can do with price. Okay guys, hopefully that's useful. For more tips like this, follow the channel if you're on YouTube, Facebook, but we want more of you guys looking at our useful content and liking and sharing. We'll see you in the next one.